Welcome to the Doctors of Running Virtual Roundtable, where we, a group of doctors of physical therapy, discuss the art and the science to the stuff that we are putting on our feet. We are continuing our journey through the DPT Approved Awards. This is episode number 69 of the podcast. We are, how many? 4, 5, 5-ish episodes into our DPT Approved Awards, which again are our run through of some of our favorite shoes and some of what we think are the best constructed shoes within different categories. Today, the week that this is getting released is the week of Christmas. So happy holidays to everybody. We've got our festive gear on. I got a flashy, whatever, like literally flashing hat on, and everybody else is, Matt's wearing a performance. Hey, we got that for your birthday.
Yes, that's why I was wearing it. It's a festive, aggressive holiday performance shirt.
The same with this though. Shout out Brooks Running. Run Merry.
Run Merry.
Yeah, instead of Run Happy, it's Run Merry.
That's really good.
It says it on the shirt.
I like that.
That's nice.
Yeah. And go Warriors, #1 in the West.
Hey, they're looking good.
They are.
They're looking good. Well, again, we are working through our DPT Approved Awards. Our team has ran over 15,000 miles this year, and we've tested over 110 shoes. This is probably the category that people love to talk about the most, and it's the shoes that we run in the least.
And running them a good amount.
Yeah, maybe we run in them more than we should. Maybe not. Conversation for another time.
2 to 3 times a week, probably.
Dang. I suppose you're doing fast stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird. We're talking about racing shoes. We're going to be talking about what are the best racing shoes for short and long distances racing that have come out this year. Not talking about spikes. We're talking about road racing, and we will dive into that today. We're each going to give, as we have in the past, our contributor picks, the ones that we've personally enjoyed the most, and then our consensus pick overall for what we think was the best offering for a road racing shoe this year. Anything you guys want to add regarding what this category is about?
Yeah, for the listeners out there, this shoe will not get mentioned today.
Alpha Fly.
For once, David's not going to mention it.
Because it didn't come out this year.
It did not. That's the only reason.
It's the only reason.
It's holding up. I actually don't run in these that much. I mean, like on the big days I do, or like the big workouts, and I only have maybe 125 miles maybe on them. So
yeah. Also, we do have to give DJ a little bit of a floor here to talk about his marathon.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if you want to. We're proud of you.
Yeah, we are proud of you.
That was on the spot there.
I know. I did not prep him for this, but can you give us I feel like the way you've walked through your marathon experience, and we can't do the whole story right now.
No,
there certainly is a story, but can you just tell us kind of how you've been reflecting on it and what your shoe was? Because people were wondering.
Yeah, I did end up running in the Alpha Fly. I ran at the California International Marathon for 2021 up in Sacramento, December 5th, I think. It didn't go as planned, and sometimes that happens, and that's okay. But I executed as best I could. The plan was to go run basically 520s, like 520 to 525, stay smooth, stay consistent, don't do anything crazy. And that went perfectly to plan for 14 miles. And came through the half marathon, 110, exactly what we wanted. And I blacked out. So
literally, he literally blacked out.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of recollection of what happened. Literally from 14 to 18, I don't remember a thing. Mm-hmm. I remember my coach and I remember my girlfriend's voice, and they were right after the half marathon point. And you go through the half marathon, you make a left onto Fair Oaks. Then there's kind of this kind of gradual down, and then it kind of goes up. That's the last thing I remember. I remember seeing a long stretch, and that was it. So I don't know what happened. Everything kind of came back around 18 or so. And I basically just walked and jogged the rest of the way. I was kind of going in and out of consciousness a little bit. It was pretty crazy. That hasn't really happened to me before, at least not like that. I've gotten lightheaded from running hard before. I think that happens to everyone. Mm-hmm. But that was the first time it got probably like a little bit scary. So
Right.
I think I finished like 245, I think. So that's that. So 110 first half, 135 second half. So we crushed it.
We're just happy you made for you
We're
to
happy
gut
you're
it out.
alive and that you finished.
Happy you're alive and that to gut out that you could have just pulled, like I feel like there's plenty of people that pull, but I just think that there was some grit that you showed to just, you know what, I'm gonna
believe me, the thought crossed my mind when there was still like 10K left and you're like walking like
well, really, I just asked you that because we needed to talk about the Alpha Fly for you.
Yeah, I ran in the Alpha Fly. It's like my old reliable for the people that are listening and viewing and have followed us for a while. I thought about running in some other shoots. I genuinely did. And part of me still isn't sure if I made the right decision. I do like a lot of the other shoes that came out this year. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like my old reliable. I just kind of was like, you know what? Like, good things happen when I wear that shoe. And ironically,
it definitely shows us the shoe is not the make or break scenario in this sport. Marathoning, the marathon happens.
Now, so that being said, I would like to give a shout out because there was a huge explosion of quality racing shoes this year that, like, in the past, like, the true choices were a little bit more limited, and now we are absolutely overwhelmed with solid choices. So this was not an easy category to pick.
That's what I was going to say, the exact same thing. I think this was a year where it was almost sneaky how many good options came out. So we'll probably hit a good number of them. What we're going to do is we'll each give our own contributor pick for short and long distance. We're going to qualify that as anything under half marathon short, anything over half marathon or over long. And we'll give a pick for each of those and then our overall consensus pick at the end. So Matt, why don't you start us off? Give us your short and your long distance. Don't talk about the consensus pick, Matt.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
So
cool.
Assuming I don't know if I can talk about this other one yet for short distance, but I use the major one for pretty much everything, minus trails. And I'm so happy to say this because the first version was such a huge disappointment. And this was awesome. So the Adidas Adios Pro 2 was by far my choice for me of the year. There were some other really good ones out there that also could do well on trails. This is just what I kept choosing, whether it was 5K, 10K. I ran some longer tempos in this shoe. And if I had to run a marathon tomorrow, this is what I would grab. If I had to run a 5K tomorrow, right now, this is what I would, 5K, I'd probably grab this, but we're going to leave that for a little bit later. But I still ran plenty of 5Ks in this shoe and maxed out what I thought I could do. And it was awesome for that. So it can do that. So that would be my top for kind of both of them. And just the way
really quick, Matt.
Yeah,
really quick. I think just you mentioned the Takumi Sen 8. We did make the decision that to be eligible for the 2021 awards, if it's a shoe that is released in November or December of a year, they're eligible for the next year's award. Yep. So the Takumi Sen was released in December of 2021, which means it will be eligible for next year's awards. Right. So anyway.
Yeah. So now I would choose this probably for 5K, but still for longer stuff, Adios Pro 2. Just the weight, it feels way more nimble than the first one. The foam, I'm not sure because I had a prototype. I don't know if this is an early release, but the foam, the Light Strike Pro did not feel the same in the first version compared to the second. So second one is just nice. It's bouncy, but it's not unstable for me. I think other people anybody that goes out laterally, you're not going to like this shoe. But for me, the rear foot design, the really lateral heel bevel, there's a rear foot plate in here for somebody like me who pronates. When you're running faster, this shoe works for me. And I don't fatigue in it. And I've taken, like I said, variety of race distances, and I do extremely well. My only gripe for me, the durability isn't so hot. Here's my old version, which has been I've taken enough that I cannot run in this anymore.
How many miles?
And I think I've got maybe 60 or 70.
That's so bad.
Yeah.
if you're not watching, the entire,
I have over 50 on mine.
The entire strip is gone,
mine, and it's like,
how does Matt do that?
I don't know, man. I mean, like, sure, mine has some wear, but like, that's still there. I still got another 50 before I probably shave it off.
Yeah,
Maybe 100.
I took a pretty massive. That's now it's a lateral bevel that cannot be running anymore. So for someone who grinds midsoles, it wasn't super great. But every other performance aspect was really good, where I could dial it into running faster at 5K distances. But it was also a shoe that's for me, not for other people, stable enough that it corrects my mechanics enough that I can handle super long distances in it. So there was some yeah, go for it.
I want to jump in there right now because I think we've been hearing from a couple of viewers and emails talking about how they've heard us say that, and Matt talk about the stability of the Adios Pro 2.
Yeah.
And they're like, you've said this is the most stable super shoe out there. And it's the most stable for Matt's mechanics. It's I think
not for most people.
No, it's not the most stable one.
Yeah.
It's relatively unstable.
It's relatively unstable, to be honest, for most people. So we should give a caveat there. It's stable for my mechanics because I slam in so hard. The mechanics of the sole work very well for me. But if you are anybody that has neutral or lateral mechanics, this shoe is probably a no-no unless you get up into the forefoot.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in now for my picks. So you kind of have the one that spans your distances. I have two different picks. I'll start with my short because it's the same as what Matt just said, but Adios Pro 2 is my pick for short, which the reason for that is because it's partially because I'm a slower runner compared to who this shoe is designed for, like these elite runners. And this is one of those preference things, and it's not going to hold true for everybody. But the way that this shoe is constructed with the big cutout in the middle, some of the cuts that you have even on the lateral side and the lateral bias to this whole deal, if you're going slow, it feels like you're chopping over the transitions. It's just not going to smooth out. So for me to run a marathon, which I just ran a 3:30 marathon, so I'm running 8-minute miles. This shoe doesn't smooth out there for me. So I love the way the foam feels, and it does feel really, has that pop and that roll and that bounce, the propulsion when you get going. And I do like the toe spring construction here. And the heel compression is really nice, but it doesn't smooth out for me till I go faster. And so I just ran a 5-miler a couple weeks ago. And I ran a PR, and I ran these in these, and they worked really, really well for that for me. And they felt smooth the whole way. I didn't have any of that choppiness, but if I go slower, I can't do these. And so that's why for me, it falls into the faster category for shorter distance stuff. What do you got, Matt?
I would say, again, we want to remind the viewers that the majority of the shoes that we're going over today are not meant to be used for slower pace runs. They are not designed for recovery runs. They're not designed for easy runs. And we encourage you not to do that, because the way they're designed they were not designed with that in mind. They were designed for racing, for moving faster. The couple exceptions to this, which we're not going to talk about a ton, we'll mention a little bit. These two, the RC Elite 2 from New Balance is probably the most comfortable and is one of my top lightweight trainers. Plated trainers, for that reason, where the sole is forgiving enough, you can use this for more easier stuff. The Deviate Nitro Elite is also another one that's really hard to find, but it's so comfortable. It can handle some easier stuff, but most of the stuff we encourage you do not use for easier efforts. If you're working a little harder, that's when the mechanics of these shoes are going to work better based on the foams and some of the inherent instabilities. None of these are true stability shoes, even remotely. So be cautious with those.
Yeah. My long distance pick, you guys probably know it if you've been following us, because I ran my marathon in it. I find it to just be really protective, smooth and consistent, not too bouncy, not too soft. It sits on the firmer end of some of these super shoes, and it's the Saucony Endorphin Pro 2. I loved it for my marathon. I would do it again a million times over. It just really, like I said, I'm running 8-minute miles, and because of the construction, it's got that full contact outsole. It has a not too excessive, rocker geometry. And then the high stack just made it feel really protective, consistent, smooth. It felt good to go, and a little bit firmer, which a preference for me is there. So
a common clinical suggestion for a lot of people out there. I had a lot of runners this year with Achilles issues, including myself, or stiff ankles, especially masters runners. This was a really successful shoe choice for a lot of people that were intentionally not for training, but for racing. especially my master athletes that were dealing with Achilles stuff. And so that what's that called? Why am I forgetting this?
Speed roll.
Speed roll works very well as a rocker for unloading some ankle stuff. So it was a good one clinically.
Yes, and I did like the higher drop.
Yeah,
it's the 8mm. So awesome. All right, DJ, what you got?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good transition. So for the Endorphin Pro 2, I had a little bit of a hard time going faster in it. Like I could, but it felt kind of forced. And so if you know me and racing shoes, I'm gonna bring up more than one. I'm gonna keep it concise.
David's our guru. You know, if you in different categories, David's our plated shoe guru.
But I had a little bit of a hard time with the Endorphin Pro Plus. And so like with the way we worked our picks out, we had our top 3 for short distance being 10K and down, and our long distance basically being over 10K. So I don't know, let's say 10 mile plus. And I'm going to go with my number 3 on the short list, because I will talk about my number 2 afterwards. But my number 3 was the Endorphin Pro Plus. And that was a big surprise to me, because Power Run PB, to me, it's not quite as responsive as some of these other midsoles out there. They rely much more on that speed roll, that geometry, getting into a rhythmic cadence, getting into a rhythmic stride, and just kind of getting into rhythm and feeling good and just rolling off of the same pace. And traditionally, it hasn't felt great to push hard off of the forefoot for me. That changes with Endorphin Pro Plus.
Yeah, half ounce for sure. Yeah,
and like this thing is so light. It's under 7 ounces. It's light. It's nimble. The outsole is aggressive enough to feel like you can really grab the ground underneath you, and you can run some pretty hot paces in this. And I have run under 20 minutes for 4 miles in this in a workout, and it felt good. And this is definitely a shoe that's worth reaching for. And it's one that I get a little bit excited about. The upper could probably be a little bit, it could probably hold the foot down a little bit better, but you just lace that thing down tight. You live with it because it lost that much weight. So the Endorphin Pro Plus is going to be my contributor pick, a surprising pick, one that I feel you could even use for cross country because of that outsole coverage in most situations. California cross country. I mean, I'm not talking thick, muddy, grassy. There's not a single super shoe I think that can do that. But you go and you run on a clean cut country club or like a Mount Sac type course where you've got dirt or some things like that. I think you could. I totally think you could.
You'd take a shoe that's bright white on a dirt course. I think that's blasphemy.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do.
Totally. All right. What's your long distance?
So my long distance one, it's probably not a surprise for many. This is my number 1 in the category. It's not the consensus pick due to some other reasons, but it's going to be the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent 2. I didn't realize it was a 40mm stack in the heel. I thought it was a little bit lower, but it's a high stack shoe. It doesn't really look like it. You have a little bit more drop in the Next Percent 2 than you do in the Alpha Fly. You don't have that beefed up pod there. It does feel like it a little bit at first. It took a little bit of getting used to for me, but at the end of the day, I mean, the Zoom X midsole and the geometry of the shoe, it's forgiving and it's light and it's fast and it just feels good. And it feels good at faster paces and it feels good at rhythmic paces. It's a very versatile racing shoe. They did a good job with it. I think there's a reason why a lot of people have it on their feet. It doesn't work for everyone. I will say that outright right now. And I was not sold on it to begin with in the beginning. It's one that grew on me as I ran more in it. I remember sending them a message immediately after my first day and being like, I don't know. But
you were surprised. Yeah.
But it grew on me. It did. And I think it's just an awesome shoe for long distance racing. I think it's lightweight, keeps things going. It was in the running for what I was going to wear at CIM. There were 3 shoes that I finaled it down to.
What was the third one again?
I can't talk about it.
Yep. That was the biggest surprise. I was like, when you put that on that third one on the list, and I'm like, what?
That's another one that grew on me.
Yeah.
That's another one that grew on me.
Why can't you talk about it?
Because I can't talk about it, Nathan. There's rules.
Oh, what? What shoe is it?
Anyways, but yeah, it's the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent. So it's somewhat high drop for a racing shoe, but it doesn't feel like it because you have obviously Zoom X compresses a lot and you roll through. It's got a bouncy feel. A lot of people know the Vaporfly. I feel like I'm just talking circles and repeating what a lot of other people have said about the shoe. It's
Vaporfly.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat.
Just really, really quick, give a shout out. Sorry. I mean, I'm not going to talk about it much. The Deviate Nitro Elite barely missed the list for me. And the shoe that we will talk about as the consensus pick is a shoe that I don't think will work for everybody. And if I took that shoe off of the list, just based on like common things that I think will work for people, this would slide right in. So
I think that shoe will work for the Deviate Nitro Elite will work for more people from you're talking injury standpoint and like comfort.
Yeah, just comfort.
Definitely comfort.
I think. Yeah, it's a comfortable shoe, and it's still responsive. It's still a racing shoe. You can still run very fast in this. And
you could be like Molly.
Yeah, you could be
Big
like
Cat
Molly.
Energy.
So it
stuff.
just barely missed the list for me. I mean, that was a tough tug at my heartstrings. So I just had to give it a quick shout out.
Same, especially for me for that shorter distance, more than long, just because it is a little bit lower. All right. Consensus pick time. This is our 2021 consensus pick for best road racing shoe. And it is the ASICS Metaspeed Sky. You probably could have guessed that given all the shoes that we talked about and hadn't mentioned this one yet. This was a huge drop from ASICS this year. It really, they brought out the Meta Racer last year, not the Alpha Fly, David. I'm sorry.
No. Wait for V2 next year.
Yeah. But they brought out the Meta Racer last year, but it was a lower stack kind of shoe that wasn't quite, it clearly wasn't up to par with kind of what was going on with the Vaporfly. And then the Endorphin Pro was kind of the next big offering that came in. So this was their first real entry and they really did a great job. This is one of the lightest ones out there, if not the lightest. It's right around that 7 ounce mark. And you can feel that feels really light. It's got a lot of stack underneath. For those who like lower drop, it's 5 millimeter drop compared to, the 8 and 8 over 8 that you get in kind of the Adios Pro and the Endorphin Pro. So there you go. Metaspeed Sky.
Can I talk about this?
Yeah, Matt's the one who has done the craziest things in this shoe.
Yeah, so this was kind of my craziest shoe. It was very close.
Wait. Sorry, I'm going to interject.
Yeah.
Endorphin Pro Plus can't run cross country, but this can run trail. Get out of here.
Yes. No, definitely.
Get out of here.
No. The traction, I'm sorry.
Right now.
The traction and the durability of this shoe is way better than the Endorphin Pro Plus. I love that shoe. I have 150 miles on this shoe.
That the Endorphin Pro Plus can't, and this one can.
The traction is way better. I took this on a 10-mile trail race, right?
We know
this has a problem. This shoe has 150 miles on it. It feels great. I still use it. This is my left shoe, which is the one I tear up. The outsole is still there,
which is amazing.
Let that be said.
That's a miracle.
That is a miracle. I don't think there's any training shoes that can even do that most of the time. So this can handle, I mean, I wouldn't do it. I would not do this again. I used it for a very aggressive trail race and a cross country race on dirt. Wouldn't suggest it. The couple people that have asked that like the shoe and are doing shorter stuff and want a little better traction, I've suggested the Metaspeed Edge just because it's a little bit lower, but that is a totally different shoe. The Sky, for me, I did not like this shoe when I first tried it on. And I have 2 pair. I have a 10.5 and a 10, and I'm experiencing the same thing with this one where I'm like, this shoe takes time to break in. So if you really want to like this shoe, you're going to have to give it some time. And do not race a marathon out of the box with this. You have to break this in. You have to break your body and the shoe because it was stiff. It's stiff when you first take it out. And then after a couple miles, this sole just breaks in so nicely. And
this thing is so stiff.
It is so stiff. When the foam breaks in, it's very fast and aggressive. It's one of those ones where I like this a little bit better for shorter stuff. The forefoot's really nice and stable. The heel is less stable for me. I cannot handle super long stuff in this. And I've taken this on long tempo runs and I get a little bit sore. So this isn't a marathon shoe for me, but for people that don't need stability, this is going to be a top shoe. The foam, when it breaks in, is phenomenal. The shoe is super light. The durability is phenomenal. Fit is good. I would encourage a lot of people to go up a half size. The 10, I went with the 10, and it was definitely close to my toes, and I got a little blistering, but it was enough that I could handle it. As opposed to the edge was just like I couldn't do it. It was way too short, and I sent it to David. 10 and a half for me was perfect. Is perfect size. It's breaking in quicker because I think that my feet are fitting and going over the plate better. But it's just, again, it's another shout out to ASICS that they did a phenomenal job. I'm already seeing photos of version 2, and apparently they're changing the foam. But I think the Adios Pro 2 works for me because of my unique mechanics. But I think for the majority of people, the Metaspeed Sky is going to be a phenomenal choice if you let it break in and ease into this shoe. It's great. I really enjoyed it and used it for things I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, I did a half marathon in these, not a race, but I ran a half marathon distance in this shoe. And it is one of those that as I kept going, I had to learn the shoe. Yep. You said kind of break your body into it. Yep. I think that the construction of for me, the lower drop combined with the extremely stiff, like I can't get any like flex out of this. Whereas even with the shoe that's considered stiff, the Endorphin Pro, like you can see I can actually bend that. You can't do that with the Sky. And I had to learn how to get I'd be curious to do biomechanical studies with a shoe like this to look at, is it changing how you're running a little bit, but it felt really good and bouncy, kind of has like that. The heel really compresses in this shoe, which David and I kind of talked about this, where that's the one like caveat that we would both give. And that I experienced was calf demand with this shoe is pretty high because that heel compresses a lot. The plate sits high and the way that the foam is contoured allows it to really compress in the heel. And so it's kind of like you fall into it and you got to climb on out. So if you have Achilles calf issues, something to be aware of for sure.
Not the best choice, but everything else you'll be good.
That was my exact reasoning for bringing the Puma Deviate up earlier.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a shoe that's going to work for everyone. And there is a little bit higher calf demands. I've had a little bit of soreness to the calves, maybe the Achilles, especially at first when running in it. As you get used to it, then it's fine, but not a shoe for everybody per se. What I will say though, the midsole, this is probably the closest thing to Zoom X from a feeling standpoint that I've run in, that kind of trampoline, bouncy, sink in and come off of type of midsole.
Yeah.
This is probably about as close as I have felt personally, at least with shoes I can talk about. And I just got to put some hype out there. Why not? But yeah, this thing is stiff. So yeah, because of the reasons we talked about before, I mean, you're going to get a lot of pop out of this shoe, but you're going to have to work to do it a tiny bit. And those calves are probably going to be where you feel it. And I think it's a great shoe. I think for me, I wasn't sold on it at first. And I think it was because I was almost too bouncy, where I felt like my stride was getting uncontrolled. And as I kind of broke the shoe in more and I kind of learned to run with it, the shoe started to come alive a lot more for me. And I started to feel more balanced and nimble in it.
Productive.
Yeah. And so for me, this was actually my number 1 pick for short distance and my number 2 pick for long distance, with an asterisk, you know, like where it's like, I could do it. I've trained myself up to it, but I don't think it's something you're going to take out of the box and just do right away.
Please don't do that.
Yeah. But honestly, the more I think about it, like the next long distance race I do, there's a good chance this is probably going to be on my feet. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Knowing me, it changes on the week of or day of in some situations. So,
and then it goes back to Alpha Fly.
It just goes back to
and then it goes back to Alpha Fly. No, I ran in the Adios Pro on one race.
You did. That was
and I ran in the Rocket X on one race.
That's surprising. Yeah.
That was kind of mandatory.
But yeah, this was number 3. This was number 3 on David's pick for CIM, which was surprising because there were so many other options. And he's like, hey, this is
that's
number 3.
Why you couldn't talk about it.
And we're like, really? Like, you know, he'd be like, yeah, I'm not, you know, the biggest fan, but as I had grown to love it more and more and more, but then all of a sudden it started showing up, and again, emphasize you got to break the shoe in.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to work better for you if you put a lot of force into the ground. We're still trying to figure out ASICS, you know, what was that, the stride versus cadence runner, which really from our standpoint goes down to a like hip versus ankle strategy. Are you using hip more? You're going to have a longer stride. Are you using ankle more, which is going to be a shorter stride, higher cadence? For people that put a lot of force into the ground, this shoe does work well. I'm a slammer. I'm somebody you've seen what the outsoles of some of my shoes look like, which is why nobody ever wants me to donate my shoes to them. Because by the time I have a couple miles, the outsole's gone.
Yeah, you don't want it.
But once my stride opens up and I start hitting the ground hard, the bounce from this shoe is fantastic. And we saw some shout out to Lab Rat Runs. Go check them out on Instagram. Did some research and some economy stuff.
Lab Rat Rundown.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I can't. We do this live. I don't prep. Did some economy studies and found that this was the closest thing to some of the Nike options. So really good job, Asics.
Yeah. And actually, now that I think about it, then this is individual to his mechanics.
It is
on the chart he posted, but
he did
the number one for him. And then all within like 0.1% of each other, it was Vaporfly Next Percent, what we just talked about, A6 Metaspeed Sky and the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite. They were all like 2.2% or something like that.
That was for his own, but the bigger study with 12 to 16, this was the one. This was in the same category up there, and then everything else was, and then this was down one level.
Yeah, and Puma wasn't in that original one.
Right. He didn't do the large study with. Yes, good point. I see you were talking about the Puma.
Yeah,
you wanted to bring Puma into it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, out of the ones that we brought up, like, those all were right in there. And then Endorphin Pro was just like a little bit below, but the Endorphin Pro Plus wasn't even out yet. So who knows? Maybe the change in weight might have, I don't know.
Right.
With those things.
Good. Well, we got Matt, what you got? He's always got his finger.
I get made fun of in my PhD stuff that I still raise my hand, even though we're all adults. Don't use this for trails. Don't do what I do. I definitely had some Achilles issues after that, but I got through. It's fine. It's a road shoe. It's a road shoe. It's a road shoe.
Great.
I'm telling you can.
No, don't
look at that thing, dude. That is so grippy for a racing shoe.
But the sole is so narrow and that thing is so high, you're going to fall off the side.
It's not that high. It's like 32, right?
Whatever.
30, 34 maybe.
They have a Power Run PB trail shoe.
It's 38?
Yeah,
man.
They have a Power Run PB trail shoe coming out. Just be patient.
Endorphin Pro Plus Doctors.
Stack height? Really?
We're going to look this up.
Yeah, gotta look it up.
I mean,
in the meantime,
I'll stand corrected, but I for some reason I thought it was lower than the other ones. Maybe it's
35 and a half.
There we go. It's not 40. I knew it was a little bit lower than the other ones. I thought it was
not by much.
I thought it was lower than that though, but I guess not.
Yeah. Oh, the 3 is up to 39 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Version 3 is.
Gotcha.
Which we don't have yet.
We're a little bit lower in stack.
Yes. Thank you.
Compared to the rest. I'm not crazy.
David's always right.
Yeah. And
well, in that time,
half right.
In that time where we were looking that up, hopefully you took that moment to leave us a review on the podcast. I'm pushing hard for that right now. No, but actually we're going to wrap it up. Yeah. And this is kind of crazy because this is going to be the last release of 2021. So everybody in the DOR fam, we're just super thankful for you all. Our next episode is going to have something super fun that we're really excited about because of your support and because of Bach's work on our end. Doctors of Running has started to make income, and so there's something that we're starting in the beginning of 2022 that we're going to talk about on the next podcast, and we're really excited about it. And it's something that we hope kind of makes this feel even more like a family and like we're all in this together and doing something good for the world. So please check into next week's episode. We'll be introducing that new thing that we're doing. But again, I think as we wrap this year up, we're just filled with gratitude for what it's been from a Doctors of Running perspective in terms of the growth we've seen in relationships with companies, just getting to know a lot of you guys more through emails and through the interaction on some of these media channels, as we're continuing to walk through pandemic life. it's been fun to have this bit of a community. And so we hope that it continues to grow in 2022. We'll probably do some kind of a goals for 2022 episode or something fun like that. And then jump back into kind of the nitty gritty of more of the science behind the stuff that we're putting on our feet. These last couple have been a lot of the art, which is fun too. So again, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can always email us at doctorsofrunning@gmail.com. Have a great new year.